Going on, everyone? John Matrix here. So today I want to talk about an article that's going on with the writer's strike that I don't know if you guys are familiar with. If you're into movies like I am, you know, I'm sure you know that there's been a big, writer and actors guild strike that's been going on between, the Writers Guild and a lot of these various streaming and movie production companies. I'm a huge fan of movies and TV shows, really just good stories. Like, I just like good stories. And I grew up predominantly, watching movies and TV shows back in the day, because I'm from the before times, before there was internet. And so that's what we had to do to entertain ourselves, especially living down here in Florida when it's super hot outside all the time. It's nice after you've been out running around doing stuff all day to just chill out and watch a movie and relax. So yeah, I haven't been like super keeping up with what's been going on with the strike. I read some articles here and there, but one of them caught my eye here today, and it's actually about the actors from Breaking Bad joining the picket line and talking about, just talking about the issues going on with the strike. I guess one of the big contentions that's going on right now is actors feeling like they're not getting paid what they should be based on the performance of their shows. And I'll go into some of that stuff a little bit more, but let's just go over this article first. So, in quotes, "It's insane to me that I don't get a piece from Netflix. Breaking Bad stars reunite an actors strike on the picket line. The cast got together upon the Hollywood studio to resume negotiations with the striking screen actors. The cast of Breaking Bad, including Bryan Cranston and Aaron Paul, reunited this week to call upon Hollywood studios to resume negotiations with striking screen actors. We wanted to come back to the table," Cranston, who played family man turned drug kingpin Walter White in the show, said in a plea to the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers outside Sony Picture Studios Tuesday, August 29th. Cranston was joined by Paul, Jesse Plemons, and other members of the Breaking Bad universe. I like how they say Breaking Bad universe. I guess, you also have Better Call Saul, so I don't know if that's going to get a spinoff of some sort either. But anyway, from the Breaking Bad universe, in an effort to energize picket lines more, and more than a month after the SAG-AFTRA joined strike Hollywood writers. I don't know, just had a brain fart there. Anyway, both guilds are seeking to address issues brought about by the dominance of streaming services, which have changed all aspects of production and pay in the industry. The way things were structured 10 years ago made a lot of sense, and it made it more possible for journeyman type actors in the middle that are working just as hard or harder, Plemons said. Okay, kind of a weird statement. By its final season, which aired more than a decade ago, Breaking Bad was one of the most watched and highest rated cable TV shows ever. The AMC hit series has achieved enduring popularity in Netflix, but its stars say that it has not been reflected in their pay. I don't get a piece from Netflix on Breaking Bad, to be totally honest, and it's insane to me," Paul said. "I think a lot of these streamers know that they have been getting away with not paying people a fair wage now, and it's time to pony up." Cranston said that they chose Sony for their picket line reunion as the studio was behind the Emmy Award-winning hit Breaking Bad, along with its spin-off projects, the AMC prequel series Better Call Saul and the Netflix film El Camino. We're not making any. They are not villains. They are people, and they're people that we are willing to work with once. And at some point, Cranston said, we just want them to see reality. Several other casts have joined the picket lines during the strike, including actors from Park and Recreation. The call to Jury Duty, drawing a link between popular shows and actors and goals. Residual payments, additional compensation paid out to actors when their TV shows or movies are replayed, have been a central issue since in the strike action. And that's what I'm going to talk about here in a little bit once I get done reading this article. Residuals played a huge role in stars long-running terrestrial sitcoms like Friends and Big Bang Theory, becoming among the highest-paid TV stars of all time, as their shows are repeated so much on television. But in the streaming age, actors rarely paid residuals, despite their work constantly available to be replayed by fans. This is Us star Mandy Moore recently spoke out about making pennies from residual payments on the NBC show, despite critical acclaim and impressive viewership ratings. Elsewhere, Grey's Anatomy's Ellen Papio called on Netflix over the issue. Cranston also confirmed SAG-AFTRA president Fran Drescher recent comments The Associated Press that these dual hydroid strikes are galvanizing a broader movement throughout the country. Without organized labor, management will just keep stuffing their pockets. Sorry. Without organized labor, management will just keep stuffing their pockets. They don't and will not ever just go. They don't just. I'm sorry. I'm just having brain fart now. They don't and will not ever just go, you know what? I don't think this is being fair to those people. I'm going to pay them more. It's not what they do, he said. So, for those who may not be unfamiliar, back in the day during the cable TV era, 90s through the 2000s, before the streaming really became a thing, maybe even in the mid to late 80s, the way that things would work is these production companies would make a show. The actors, the staff, everyone would get paid a specific, upfront amount or whatever for, whatever their contract negotiation rate was. And then as the show, became more popular with the cable television companies, like ABC, NBC, CBS, the big networks, they would negotiate, lease rates with these, production companies that made these shows. And as the shows got more popular and got more in demand, they were making more ratings, the production companies could negotiate to make more money. And most of the time, actors would have, royalty contracts. They would have royalty clauses in their contracts that would say, once it reached a certain amount of viewership, they would start making a certain amount of extra money, or, something along those lines. Essentially, they would have it in their contracts to make residuals over time, depending on how popular the show was and when it got played. And so now that we're in the streaming era, I should say, not area, that just isn't happening. It seems like, a lot of these actors just aren't getting any residuals from, their shows being played on any of these streaming platforms, Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, whatever. And there's also a similar thing, I think, going on with a lot of artists not really making a whole lot of money off of streaming platforms like Spotify and et cetera, et cetera. So that's one of the main things that's going on with the strike. Now, one of the things back in the day too, was that, the cable provider companies would also negotiate with, these big network companies, to allow them to, have their channels available for them, for their consumers on their cable television networks. And so as the production price of a lot of these shows and other things would go up, and as these networks expanded, the rates would go up. So the television cable companies would charge more. That's why cable TV is so expensive nowadays, or at least it's one of the big reasons why cable TV is so expensive nowadays. And so, that's one of the issues that I feel like isn't also being brought up. Like, I'm all for people making a fair wage. The issue is it's always going to end up coming back to the consumer. It's always going to end up hitting the consumer. So honestly, what I think eventually is going to happen is they'll come to a negotiation deal. They'll make some kind of deal where, they'll start getting residuals based off of, a certain amount of time streamed in a certain amount of time or whatever. Somehow they'll make it. But, we're already seeing it happen where a lot of these these streaming platforms are already up in their rates. They're starting to, all of them, add like a base version of their streaming package where it's like $5 a month, but you have to deal with advertisers, and obviously, advertisements can bring in a ton of money. It's starting to happen on Twitch now. That's been a huge thing on Twitch, and now YouTube as well. They're starting to work out ways to where they can bypass ad blocks to force you to watch ads, because obviously it's a huge way to make money. So, what I feel like is going to end up happening is it's just going to end up passing the buck on to us, and they're just going to jack up their rates more again. And it's another situation where it's like, it's just, people are going to, again, have to start making a choice of what streaming service are they wanting to, keep a hold of. What is it really worth having a lot of these streaming services? Right now I pretty much keep a I keep my account going for both Netflix and Hulu. Those are pretty much the only two services that I really use, because between the two of them, pretty much any movie or show that I'm interested in usually is on there, and so I can just watch it whenever. Occasionally, when Disney Plus has something like a new season of The Mandalorian, or when this season of Ahsoka is going to be done, you know, I'll rent it for a month, watch it, or like Paramount Plus, you know. I would, when I was super into TNG, the Star Trek, The Next Generation, grew up with that, love it. It's one of my favorite shows. It's still, I think, one of the greatest shows ever. So when Picard came out, you know, I was getting that when the seasons were done. So it's just going to be, I think it's just going to end up being a situation where a lot of these companies are going to like shooting themselves in the foot. Everything's just getting more expensive, for seemingly no real reason, or at least reasons that I'm not necessarily, you know, getting into, because a lot of it's political stuff, and I try to stay away from politics as much as possible, especially in, you know, the channel and any kind of content I'm making. But inevitably it all just ends up going down to the consumer having to pay more, because, you know, I mean, let's face it, obviously every business is in the business of making money. You know, you got to make money in order to keep the lights on and to get people paid. And, you know, the big thing with a lot of these streaming platforms and a lot of these big corporations now is getting people to invest in them so that they can supposedly put more of that money into making a better product for us. But what ends up mostly happening is a lot of top execs are just pocketing it. And so it really just comes down to a question of what is going to happen with a lot of these streaming services. Like I said, I think, in my opinion, they're just going to end up raising their rates. They'll come to some kind of negotiation deal, and the streaming services will probably just end up raising their rates. And it's just going to end up being a situation where I think a lot of people will end up, you know, just doing, like I said, where when a new show comes out that they're interested in, they might rent a service here, you know, and there for a month, but otherwise they just aren't going to watch it, you know. I mean, me personally, I already pretty much, between like YouTube and Twitch, that's pretty much a lot of just what I watch. You know, there's a lot of different entertaining content on YouTube, and, you know, I'm a big gamer, so there's a lot of people, well, I wouldn't say a lot of people, but there's definitely, you know, some streamers that I enjoy, you know, hanging out in the channel and watching, and some communities that I enjoy interacting with people in, and et cetera, et cetera. So I don't even necessarily really use a lot of these streaming platforms on the regular. Most of the time, you know, it's when the day's winding down and I'm getting ready to go to bed, you know, I'll watch an episode or two of something, or I'll throw on a movie or something to kind of chill out and wind down and get ready for bed. But yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's an unfortunate situation where I just think the buck's gonna get passed down to, you know, us, just the regular people, the regular dudes. And I mean, like I said, I'm all for everyone making a fair wage. I just don't want it to be at, you know, at my expense, is I guess what it comes down to, and the expense of just the consumer. I think there needs to be some kind of, I don't know. I really don't know what a solution is, because, you know, you don't want to have any kind of, you don't want to have certain kinds of regulation, but there has to be a certain point where it's like, okay, your company is making enough profit, you're able to produce the shows you want to do, you're paying a fair wage to everyone that deserves to get paid a fair wage, and you need to be able to charge a fair price to the consumer, and not just keep raising the price on them as you're wanting to do more things. Because it's like, again, with Netflix, like, there's a ton of shows that Netflix makes that I just don't care about. Like, I think like Stranger Things is the only like actual show that Netflix currently is like in the process of making that I really have any kind of interest in. I really like The Lost Kingdom. You know, or The Last Kingdom, I should say. The Last Kingdom. You know, with Uhtred, son of Uhtred. Great show. Liked that show. That show's over. The Extraction movies were good. I think those are both Netflix originals. But beyond Altered Carbon. The first season of Altered Carbon I thought was phenomenal. Really loved it. The second season went way downhill, and then that show got canceled. And, you know, so there's just already not really a ton of shows that are on there that are their original shows that I necessarily care about. It's actually, there's a lot more anime that's been coming out on Netflix recently, like Seven Deadly Sins and stuff like that, that I've been more interested in than their original shows. And I'm pretty sure most of that is stuff that studios are doing in Japan, and they're just getting the rights for to stream over here in America. So that's a totally different situation. But anyway, so yeah, those are just kind of my thoughts. You know, it's the only other thing is, obviously, it kind of sucks that, you know, a lot of shows are being delayed, which is something that, you know, I guess kind of really need, especially with some of these companies like Disney. You know, they're starting to really see that, you know, producing a lot of these shows that just aren't really good, or that have specific agendas in them, and they're just losing a ton of money. Like, I mean, you can go into a tangent about all the stuff that they're doing with Star Wars and how Disney's, you know, really ruined the Star Wars franchise. I don't know how you go from like the most profitable, or one of the most profitable and one of the most loved Star franchises, you know, ever, to where it is now, to where there's really like, The Mandalorian was like the only hope, and I haven't watched season 3 yet. From what I hear, season 3 was not very good. And from what I hear of Ahsoka, Ahsoka's kind of mixed too. So, you know, it is what it is. But it's starting to look like, you know, a lot of these companies are starting to realize that, hey, you know, we can't just sit here and just start producing whatever we want to and just throw money at it and, you know, hope for the best. You know, I read recently that I guess their Ironheart series on Disney Plus has been put on hold indefinitely until like further notice. And then unfortunately also the Daredevil Born Again series, which I was really looking forward to. The Marvel or the Netflix Daredevil seasons, that whole little Netflix Daredevil universe was great. The Punisher, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage. The only one I didn't really care for was Iron Fist. I really didn't think Iron Fist was that good, but the rest of them were great. Would love to see the return of those shows with the cast and crew, and then continuing where they left off. The question is, you know, with Daredevil and Disney Plus, Daredevil is very much a darker, you know, R-rated, more adult themed show, and what's Disney Plus going to do with it? From, you know, watching She-Hulk, it looks like they're definitely going more of the PG-13 route, or wanted to. But with that, I guess, being on hold indefinitely now, who knows if it's actually going to ever return, which really sucks. I really wanted to see more of, I think it's Brian Cox, I think is the Daredevil actor. I mean, I think that's actually not correct at all. Charlie Cox. I was right with the last name. I don't know why I got Brian. But yeah, Charlie Cox, great Daredevil. I really like all the cast. Vincent D'Onofrio. I just can't say words tonight. It's late and I'm tired. I'm just not able to like really talk right. But Vincent D'Onofrio, you know, his Kingpin was great. John Barenthal's Punisher was great. You know, I like all the characters and all the actors that were in, you know, these shows. And the guy that played Bullseye. Bullseye was a great villain. The last season of Daredevil was epic. Loved it. Would love to see him as, you know, come back more in the future as a Daredevil antagonist. But anyway, you know, I just wanted to kind of talk about this, give my thoughts, see what you guys think. What do you guys think? What do you guys think about the strike, the Writers Guild stuff? Do you agree? Do you feel like they're not making enough money? Do you feel like you know, they shouldn't be striking and picketing? You know, what are your guys' comments? What are your guys' thoughts? Are you upset about all these shows getting delayed or canceled? And what kind of resolution would you like to see? I mean, obviously, ultimately, you know, there's, again, not to get political, it's a broad spectrum of stuff where there's a lot of lot of jobs and a lot of corporations that are making record profits right now, and the average man is getting paid squat, and a lot of it needs to change. The question is, what industries does that really need to change in, and is the acting and entertainment industry really one of them? Because I really also feel like one of the big things that's happening with the movie industry in particular right now is, you know, there's a lot of political stuff going on, but no one's really making movie shows for the consumer anymore. They're not making something to actually entertain people. You know, the corporations are all about profit and ticking boxes to maximize audience retention. You know, it's all formulaic and algorithmic to maximize profits, to, you know, show that the bottom line is good for investors, so more people invest and everyone can make more money. But then, you know, on the other side of things, you got showrunners and producers and even actors and stuff like that that are really trying to push political agendas and things, and it's showing up in a lot of shows. And, you know, again, I'm not going to get super political. I don't care about politics. I don't want to get into politics, but I just want to be entertained, man. You know, there's so much stuff going on in the world right now. Everything's getting more expensive. There's all kinds of political strife, divisions across the board, and, you know, different political spectrums, left, right, you know, Democrat, Republican, whatever. I really don't care about any of that stuff. I don't care about politics. I understand it's important, but I've got my own personal things that I need to deal with in my own sphere, and I just don't have time to, you know, pay attention and throw energy. I don't have the time and energy to put into paying attention to that stuff. So I just, you know, at the end of the day, I just want, like I said, a good story to, you know, relax and enjoy. And I think that's what most people are looking for. And I think that's really what, you know, Hollywood needs to get back to doing, is just making movies and shows to entertain people. So yeah, anyway, I think that's it. I think that's all I got to talk about this. Appreciate you guys hanging out. Appreciate you guys listening to my rant and talk. And just, yeah, let me know down in the comments what you guys think about this stuff. So yeah, that's it. See you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.